Hello and welcome to another episode of the Manufacturing Leaders. Today we welcome on Nigel Freeman, who's the Operations Director at BTS. Nigel is actually the second person we've had on the podcast from BTS, having previously interviewed his MD Phil. Nigel is what I would class as a textbook inspirational leader, and it was a real honour interviewing him today. We go right into his journey, very deep into his time at Forces and then two big blue chip companies, including one in particular, Thorn Lighting, where he was obviously very lucky to work for a number of good managers, and the lessons he learned from there he carried on later in his career. The overriding message in this episode is the key to communicate to your team, to give them voice and give them the freedom, autonomy to deliver on a process. And it was a real honour being able to interview Nigel, and I've learned so much from this, which I'm sure you will as well. So without further ado, please enjoy the episode with Nigel. Excellent. So thank you very much for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it, buddy. So if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, that would be superb, please, mate.
Yeah, hi, I'm Nigel Freeman. I work at BTS Facades and Fabrications in Newton Aycliffe, and I head up the operations side of the business.
Good man. My second guest from BTS as well. So the BTS takeover. So I appreciate you coming on, buddy. So look, I always ask the same question initially to everyone that comes on. What does it mean to you to be a leader, would you say?
So I've reflected on this because I do watch your podcast, Mark, and I know that's normally the open questions. And I think being a leader is different depending on which period of your career you've been in. So initially, when I was given a leadership role, it was very a bit of a status and something that I wanted to do and give me a career path. And this time of my career now, it's a privilege and an honour that I'm in these type of roles, and that I'm being allowed to lead people and businesses, and also to pick up the challenges that all of those things bring.
Yeah, nice. And I find that really interesting. The reason I find that interesting because the amount of people I've had on here now who've almost, it seemed like there's a pattern where you're exactly right. You almost start off your career and it's because you want to build your career and you want to be a manager, or it's given to you or whatever. And then there's a certain period of time where something sort of clicks and it becomes a privilege and you see the responsibility attached to it. I mean, is that sort of a natural progression, you think that, or is it what do you think?
I think it's a natural progression. I think you go from a point of the absorbing what you do and driving and having the ambition to progress, and then you get to a point of giving back. I think is the way that I put it here. You know, I've got a lot of knowledge and experience and learnings, and I want to give that back. Like, people invested the time and effort into me to develop my leadership style. And I want to give that back to the people that I currently look after, and I think it's definitely a development of the time in certain roles.
I don't think you find as many dictatorship type managers now. Do you know what I mean? I think there's almost like the last sort of probably 10, 15 years, you've probably got more people like yourself who want to manage for the right reasons and want to help people in their career. You don't, yeah. I don't. You find that sort of hit people with sticks, I guess, as much as you used to. So I don't know what. I think probably we'll just change as people, but I come across a lot more good. Maybe it's what I do now, but a lot more good managers than probably there used to be. I think. I don't know if you think the same.
I definitely think the same. The dictators are still out there. That is without. They are still out. They're still out there. But they are becoming the minority rather than the majority. And I think definitely the experience that I've had and the roles that I've taken in businesses and my mentors I've been lucky enough that they have coached me in the right way to do things. I was also lucky enough to have one of those dictators in a previous business. And what I learned from that was how not to do things. It was a moment of reflection for me of how would I do that in the same situation, but differently. And that was where I think I really got engaged in the leadership type of positions.
Yeah, you do. You learn as much from good managers as you bad managers, don't you? Because it makes you stand. And there's probably less than that now, because I think people don't accept it now. Particularly now in the last few years, I think the by far the biggest reason we see people leaving is poor management. And actually, the stats when we've done analysis on that, they show up that people leave roles typically now because of poor. That's multifaceted. That might be not enough management. That might be micromanagement. But either way, it's poor managers. They're the reason people leaving, which is crazy when you think about it, because that's something that actually in organizations can actually influence. So no, I completely agree. So let's go right back, if you don't mind. So if my research is correct, you're a Spennymoor lad, Nigel. Is that right? Is that where you're?
Very Hill, but
Very Hill. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was sort of the early day childhood then? Was it
childhood? I had a good childhood. My dad ran his own business for a long time, and this shows how old it was. It was punch cards, so it was really the start of the computer age. They had a number of businesses in the UK and abroad, and I suppose reflecting on it, that was the first time I saw firsthand how businesses affect families and lifestyle. He was quite forward thinking, so he wanted to move from punch cards to magnetic tape. His business partners didn't want to invest in the business, so eventually the business went against the wall because the technology moved on. There was a lot of health issues with my father, and then he moved and started working for the council. But he gave me that work ethic, both him and my mum, of you get what you deserve. So from a very young age, I had a paper round, I had a milk round, then a paper round. So I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning and finishing at 7:30 by the time I finished my paper round to bring the money in that I wanted, because I wanted to be self-sufficient. That did have an impact on my school, and I won't lie from that. I left school with no qualifications. Didn't really engage at school. Thought it was a complete waste of time, and was more interested in doing rather than textbook sort of route. Left school early, started being a joiner with a guy who had his own business, who was wanting to pass on his business. Unfortunately, he became ill and had to sell it. Became a removal man for a short time, and then had a light bulb moment of I need to do something with my life, and joined the Royal Navy. So that, I would suggest, is the first time I really got into any leadership type of training. I was very fortunate enough to pick up everything that they asked us to do very quickly. It's right what they're saying. You go in a boy, you leave a man. You have to grow up very, very quickly. But what they do is instilling with you in with your discipline, and also a way of dealing with people. Some the right way, some the wrong way. Left the Royal Navy after 6 years. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. Left on the Tuesday, had an interview on the Wednesday, and then had a fantastic 25 years plus at Thorn Lighting at Spennymoor in a number of roles, and that's defined my career path.
Yeah, and Thorn, again, another one of those companies that everyone in the area worked for, respected, great reputation, and your Thorns, your Black and Deckers, those sort of places, people have always spoken so highly of. They're rare, aren't they, those type of companies now, where you just almost like a job for life, and the culture is just perfect. And then that was the making of it. What was it like, the transition from, because there's still a lot of people do that now, obviously, come out the forces into Civvy Street, very different. What was that like?
Frustrating, shall we say, because in forces, if you were asked to do something or told to do something, you did it. Coming out into Civvy Street was totally a different environment. You had to talk to people and deal with people in a different way. I went there on a 6-week temporary contract to take photographs, because they were moving from the old punch clock cards onto a digital swipe card. So it was a 6-week thing I thought I'll do until I decide what I want to do. Then moved into payroll, production control, planning, supply chain, and then production management. But the opportunities that they give me there was not only the different areas that to go and learn and develop in, but also how to deal with your workforce, your biggest asset. That was drummed into me very, very early, that the Olympics of equipment are quite nice, but if you do not have these people on side, then they're wasting the time. And that was the first real learning point, and one of my main values that I've carried through my time in my career.
How did they do them? Did you happen to have one or two really key managers that influenced that, or was that just the culture of the business and that was bred into everyone?
No, I was lucky. They had some good managers and they had some bad managers. I was lucky that I had a good manager. They had a philosophy of if you wanted to progress through the business, you applied. They would send you on an evaluation course. If you were successful, then you got the role and you moved throughout the business. It was fantastic. Loads of opportunities. Don't get us wrong. I worked directly for bad managers, but as long as I had the ethos, as long as I apply myself and do what I'm expected to do, but look after the people that work with me and for me, then my values I'm living up to. I'm satisfying what the business requires, and eventually other opportunities arose. As with any business, the top level always changes and fresh ideas come in. And I was very, 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 very lucky that I had a great HR business partner, as well as manufacturing managers and directors as I progressed through, which then give me a lot of transferable skills and knowledge when I left there. Then to go into other things once I left Thorns, where I did a little bit of housing. So I looked after housing and developed some housing profile, and then went back into business improvement, and then eventually into electronics, which again was outside the field I'd been in, but really enjoyed 4 years in the electronics game.
Yeah, excellent. And the management side then, I mean, you mentioned, did you touch upon that in the forces then? Did they start to give you a bit of some experience there? Or did that start at Thorns typically?
The leadership side started in the although I was only initially for the first time for 6 years, I progressed rather quickly through the able rates to lead and seaman in a short period of time. Not at that time did I realise I was doing anything different. I was just doing what I thought was the right thing to do. I was lucky enough on the specialist side that I did. I was very good at it, and that I had a good boss who recognised that, who then opened up other doors for me to go through. So it was, but the leadership style and how to manage people, that was the first step. I don't use a lot of that now, I've got to say, because it's what I would class as old-fashioned. Yeah. Of the way of doing it, but it definitely gave me the stepping stone to learn and develop.
And different organisations train people differently to manage. Some people it's a sink or swim, go manage a team. Some people put you on training courses and qualifications and this and that. What do you think is the best way to become a good manager, would you say, given the experience you've got now?
Bit of both.
Okay. Yeah.
Thorn definitely did swim and give you the academical qualification to start with. So just before I went to Sweden, so I was lucky enough to go and look after a factory in Sweden. This business was losing 3 million euros a year. Was really on the edge of them closing it down. And my main mentor in my career, who's no longer with us, Terry Carmichael, gave me the opportunity to go across and use all of the tools that I'd learned at the Spennymill site and other sites within the group to stand alone in the site in Sweden. And that was definitely a sink or swim, because I can remember one of his colleagues having a word in my ear of, you do realise everybody's watching to see how well you do when you go over there, which added a nice little bit of pressure of I'm going to stand on my own 2 feet for the first time. But what that gave me was that he had the confidence in me to go and do that. And that was a fantastic 14 months I had over in Sweden. He gave me the support, so that's what I learned from that. He let me do what I needed to do. he reviewed what we were doing. He gave me support and advice, but didn't never tell me not to do anything unless he thought it could have been catastrophic. It was about, you learn by your own mistakes sometimes as well, but just use the tools and techniques you've learned. And himself and a lady called Joni Goodwin were fantastic in my development in regards to the behavioural as well as the technical competencies I needed for the role.
Yeah, amazing. And obviously, you think back to a time quite some time ago, but that must have been quite nerve-wracking, particularly going over to a different country. No one knows you. Do you think you were a man who was nervous about something, or was it a fake it till you make it? What was your mindset like at the time?
I'll not say I wasn't nervous when I first went over, but I knew the seriousness of the situation, and what I was committed and willing to do was to try and not have to close the business down, but to turn it around. I felt confident in my own ability. Yeah. I felt confident with if I wanted support, I would get it. What I didn't realise once I got to the factory was, although it was Swedish, and the majority of the Swedes do speak good English, that the workforce was made up of a lot of Eastern Europeans, and doing a team brief, because communications is a major part of whatever you're doing, would take quite a while. So I would speak in English, I would have a Swedish interpreter, Estonian, a Latvian, and a Croatian, and then somebody doing sign language on all 5 of those as well. So just trying to get through a sentence could take 5 or 10 minutes just to get the message across. But what they soon realised was the way that we communicated. I wasn't going to hide anything from them. Was that if we didn't do something, the writing was on the wall, and destiny was still in our own hands. And it was absolutely fantastic. It was probably the biggest achievement that I've had in my career, but also the biggest buzz of seeing those people. When I went after 14 months, that they were up and running, and they did what needed to be done without me being there, and that was one of the biggest achievements.
Yeah, really interesting. That's an amazing experience, which I guess some leads me to think. Obviously, there's different management styles and different situations need different styles. Would you say, the case in point there, different cultures, different languages, sign language, it probably would be very difficult for you for your actual words to have an impact then. So do you think sometimes that it's more important for the process to be right, or is it the inspiring people by the words? What do you think is almost the most crucial part of management in situations like that?
You start off with the inspiration and the communication, because that's what really gets people engaged. But that's got to be underpinned then by the processes to ensure that once things are moving, that they don't slip back, and that they can continue to improve and develop as required. I still keep in contact with a lot of the team that was in Sweden, even though the business eventually ended up having to close because of overcapacity within Europe. But they were grateful that I'd taken the time. They understood that I was going out on a Monday and coming back on a Friday, so I was missing my family and everything else. And they understood that, and that was part, I suppose, of the bond between myself and the team. What I did do, though, was allow the team to make the decisions. We give them the targets. I give them the strategy and the direction of what needed to be done. But allowed them to make the decisions of how we were going to get there, and that they hadn't had before. And they were really engaged and buzzing about, you want to let us decide what we want to do? Yes, I haven't got all the answers. You with the talent, you've got the answers. What do we need to do? And that was really, for me, an inspirational thing for me to see those people pick the baton up and run with it, and really drive through what needed to be done.
And that's legacy, isn't it? Because if you don't, I guess that comes into the process, like you say, the inspire, then build a process. Because if you remove yourself without both of those, then it'll just fall on the wayside straight away, won't it? But obviously, they've like you say, carried the baton. So that's, I love that. It's great. And I mean, it sounds like Thorns was such a massive inspiration in your career. Do you think it was a nice, healthy mix of the forces straight into that. Was that almost the perfect sort of recipe for you to kick on for the rest of your career, would you say then?
It give us an option. I've had to say, when I joined, I hadn't a clue about factories.
Yeah.
You know, I walked around the first time and watching them making all these lights, lots of long production lines, lots of ladies on the production lines. Went into the press shop area, and the paint shop was all male dominated. You know, it was quite a divide. But what it gave me was that it gave me the opportunities to progress. So there were it was a big business at the time when I joined. There was 1,400 people worked on site. As I soon found out, as long as you applied yourself and you did your best, then other doors would open for you. So that's exactly where I went into. I was lucky enough to move into, it was when cellular manufacture was first starting to come to the fore. So I moved into a brand new cell and really fell into man management because I'd been looking after materials and everything beforehand. Found that I really enjoyed it, although I got really frustrated that I felt that I was doing the best for the people. And sometimes they weren't doing the best for me in the business, which was a bit of a learning curve for myself. I was very lucky that the likes of Terry and Joni were there. Initially was a guy called Gary Hodgson and Alice Halifax who invested, took us out of what I was doing and put us into this leadership pathway with Joni. And then a guy called Dave Johnson came on the scene who first introduced me to lean. That was another light bulb moment of lean manufacturing. Sent me on a course, and I was just sat there thinking, wow, why don't we do this now? You know, there's the stripping, basically just taking waste out of the process. And then it came Six Sigma and other initiatives that they had at Thorn. And of course, we moved from an old site to a brand new bespoke manufacturing site using lean principles, and being involved in that transition and having a world-class facility and being part of the team that won the Best Factory Awards in 2009, all was in that family. And that's exactly what that team was back. But you know, when I left, we were a real family. We all knew our strengths and weaknesses, and we knew what needed to be done, because we were under a lot of pressure from Eastern Europe and China on them flooding with cheap products, and we had to make sure we kept that we had that responsibility for the longevity of employment for the people that were working there, and that was one of the main drivers that kept us going.
Yeah, and again, like I said earlier, you know, your likes of your Thorns, your back. Every time I speak to people who work there, there was a passion and almost like a commitment to the business, that they were all part of something to make something better, and that doesn't come easily. Do you know what I mean? That sort of loyalty. So the culture they, I guess, must have built there must have been fantastic to be part of, that you've probably, you know, never forgotten it, and I guess probably try to take on to other businesses you've worked for, I imagine.
Yeah, look, everything that I've learned everywhere else I've gone, I've left a little piece of that there.
Yeah.
Especially a lot of the ethoses that Terry Carmichael had. He had a load of different sayings. I still use them now. I still use the same terminology now. And people still giggle like I did when I first started saying them to me. But then I'll be in a meeting and somebody will say those words.
Yeah.
Because that means they understand what we're trying to do. So, and it was absolutely fantastic. The transferable skills that give me, that business give me, has allowed me then to go and experience other businesses and in the manufacturing and service sectors that I probably wouldn't have been able to do working in a different business.
And what I really love about doing this podcast is, and speaking to people like yourself, is there's always a chain of good managers which have left legacy, and then they've inspired so many people. You've mentioned Terry Carmichael. You know, I'm sure he's inspired a lot of other people. You'll have inspired X amount of people in your career. People be talking about Nigel Freeman and big part of my career, like you say, who says this and that, which you'd have got for someone else. Just good managers just have this web of just, you know what I mean? The legacy they leave behind. I think sometimes they don't realize. It's only when someone mentions your name 20 years after you manage them that you think, wow, I had an impact. I think comes back to the privilege part, doesn't it? Being a manager, that some people don't realize what a privilege it is to manage people and the impact they have on people's lives. I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
You do. And so after, am I right in saying you spent a bit of time sort of on something different after then? Did you have your own business for a little bit? Is that right?
It was a bit of a hobby that I did with a friend, that I thought I had the opportunity. There was a big change with the Thorn structure. Really didn't align to my values, so I thought I'd take the opportunity to move on. Fortunately, that meant I had to go and close the plant down in Sweden, but I offered to do that because I didn't want anybody from Central to go and do it. I had the empathy with the people; they trusted me, so I volunteered to do that. But that was my exit plan out of Thorns. Got into the housing thing. Should have left it as a hobby, because that's what it really was. Mentally, wasn't very taxing. Physically, yes, you're busy, but mentally not very taxing. And then started drifting back into, through the network, people asking us to go and do little bits and bobs, and could I go in and process map this, and could I go and have a look at the logistics part of the business, and started getting into the business improvement part of it. Bumped into Terry again, who was working at a different business, went to do a couple of things for him in a couple of businesses, and then bumped into another ex-colleague and got into the electronics game at Hartlepool, and then latterly at Bedlington, where I worked with a great team up there, a great guy called Dave Fellows, who had come from a totally different background and had a different way of thinking about things, which made me reflect sometimes on some of the things that I was doing as well. So even at that late stage in my career, I'm still learning from other people. And one of the things he said to me when I left was that he'd learned so much from me as well. So it was a really good vibe. Another big blue chip company, massive worldwide. Been a little bit different from some of the smaller business that I work around, and now the family business I'm working in. So it's totally different.
What was that? I was asked about that in terms of, like I say, big blue chip businesses. Pretty much all your career, and then working for a family business. What was that transition like? Because people have done that. Sometimes I find when I'm dealing with clients, some people are hesitant to take people from, blue chip businesses, they feel they won't adapt, etc. What was that like for you, that change?
I'd really done it when I'd left Thorn, so I'd already experienced that. So coming here, I really knew what I was letting myself in for. The first time I went into a small business after I'd left Thorn was a real shock. Yeah. They don't have the cash flow and the money available, and you're really going in there for a reason. But what they do have normally is when you go in is a passion to change. They realise the consequence of what's going on, because they're a smaller team. The communications isn't a problem, and you tend to get the improvement and change rapidly, rather than in a big blue chip company. It takes forever to get things signed off. A lot of time they have a lot of talent available and a lot of resource, but trying to get that QE2 ship turning sometimes takes a long time, which can become frustrating. But coming into a smaller business, I actually prefer a smaller business. I find it's easier to get people engaged. It's easier to get the communication and the messages that you want. It's easy to listen to the feedback. That's very important, that we listen to the feedback of how people are feeling, and a great thing of knowing the audience and understanding where they are with their lives. It's a lot more difficult when you've got 1,000 people working on site and you're trying to do that. So the first time was a shock. After that, you learn from it, and you just use what you've learned in the next places you go to.
It probably depends, I imagine. Tell me if I'm wrong. The type, the way it's set up, because from my experience of speaking to people, you find some family businesses, for example, who don't give you autonomy and will make decisions around the kitchen table. You're not necessarily part of it, but you get some which bring someone like yourself with a wealth of experience, just give you the autonomy to change things. Have you found sort of both sides of the coin? That, would you say?
Yeah. Here, I've got the autonomy, and I was because of the experience I've had before, I was very selective in regards to where we were going.
Yeah.
When I first went into places, they were expecting the goose to lay the golden egg.
Yeah.
Weren't willing to fix the problems that needed to be fixed. They're expecting the Harry Potter one, I call it, and that is because they weren't ready for the change. They just wanted to say a better bottom line. They weren't interested on how you were going to get there, but you weren't going to get any money. Where this place I'm at now, it's not about having the money. It's about actually making the cultural change as well as the processing improvements. And that was the big thing about me moving here, that they were going to allow, they were ready, they were hungry for that change.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't mind, let's talk about BTS, because I think they're, for me, a shining example of a company, almost like a modern day company where it's forward thinking, and obviously, you know, Phil's well past couple of times and you know, in terms of for me, also looking in, they understand the importance of marketing the business, to understand the real importance of people and that side. Does it feel like a different type of company you're working for than the majority out there, would you say?
You used a great word there, modern.
Mm-hmm.
And it's modern in its approach, and it's modern in its way of thinking, and that is not usual for especially the manufacturing production.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And that was refreshing to me. So when Phil and I were sat talking about me possibly coming here, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't coming in to have a fight and a struggle. I wanted to really make sure we were aligned in the approach, and that was down to me to ensure that I communicated effectively enough to, this is what my expectations of you are. Yeah. Now, if you can't deliver that, tell me now, and then we're all right. But if you can, let's go for it. And that's exactly where we've been. It's not just Phil, the rest of the leadership team have really embraced all of the stuff that we're doing. We've introduced so many things over the last 12 months, and over the next 12 months, we've got another tranche of initiatives and process improvements that's going to hit the workforce. But what we do in every step of the way is we communicate, and we get them in and involved in decision making. We've got what we call a BTS forum now, which is like a works council. So everything that we do, they have an input, and they help shape the policies that for their future. Yeah,
I love that, and I can see that. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to be involved in the business in the day to day to see what they're doing there, which I think is really important, because I think gone are the days where businesses need to hide behind things now. I think, you know, people want more from the business. They want to be part of something which is moving in the right direction now. It's a big part of it. Obviously, manufacturing is been through probably more challenges over the last 2-3 years than potentially ever, or certainly for a long period of time. You mentioned some stuff you implemented there. Can you pinpoint one or two things that it's had a real tangible sort of difference, would you say, I guess, against the challenges we've had with COVID and costs and war and all this type of stuff, it's moved the needle for BTS, would you say?
One of the things is for here is we are now looking at more innovation and new initiatives. And I'm not saying new products, because it may not be a new product, but new initiatives for us, which is different, because the business didn't do that previously. And for me, innovation and new products is the lifeblood of any business, because if you've got nothing new coming through, eventually your old stuff will become extinct. So that's something that is moving the dial in the right direction. One of the big things that we've really embraced here and are really driving it, and Phil's at the helm of that, is what we call the planet, is the sustainability and the environmental impact that we as a business create, but also how we embrace that. So it's not a major cost option that we're driving into the business, that it's low cost and it can actually generate revenue for you if you do it the right way and you do the right research. So that is something that is going to help us be different from our competitors moving forward, which is important. the stuff that we're doing with our people and the engagement and the communication that we do and having them feel valued in regards. And don't get us wrong, that hasn't been an easy road to go down, because some people have decided they don't want to be a part of what we do and have left. But that's allowed us then to bring in the right behavioural competency people that we want in the framework that we put together. And then one thing you'll say that, and you'll say on LinkedIn, is we should promote and share all the good things that we do. And I don't think we do that enough as any business, that we should be promoting and helping and sharing each other on good practices and good things that happen to help each other. The business forum they have here at Aycliffe is good for doing that and the networking, but we don't do it enough, and we don't do that enough as an industry, I don't think.
Yeah, I completely agree. I probably have seen a shift, I would say, probably post-COVID, when companies were almost forced to talk to each other and help each other. So I've seen more off the back of that. But I agree. I think there's some amazing networks out there. And you know, the challenges of people having manufacturing are the same, pretty much. Everyone's having the same issues. And you know, you're not working against each other. You can, companies need to help each other. So no, I completely agree. I think that's a huge part of it. Particularly, like you say, the awareness piece. You know, when companies that have got people who've been there for 50 years, I love it when I see people shout about things like that, because it's amazing. You know what I mean? Like, so rare to see now. It's brilliant. What do you say now in terms of, the years of management you've had so far now? Like you say, you've gone through different stages of that. What's the biggest challenging part of management now, would you say? Because I imagine that's changed from day one to when it is now.
Biggest challenge in it now. That's a great question. For me, in regards to me on the management side, the challenge is, as it always has been, is doing the right thing for the people and the business. And sometimes doing the right thing might not be the popular thing, but it's doing the right thing. For the business, as with any business, we've got the pressures in regards to the energy cost, the cost of living, and what's happening in the marketplace. I mean, a lot of our customer base are finding the pinch. So it's about making sure that we are strong enough and lean enough and in a good position that when we come out the other side of where we are, that we are in a better position than we were when we went in. But making sure that we keep the core of our workforce and all of the good talent that we've got engaged in getting us through there.
Yeah,
so that's the main challenge.
And on the flip side, for you now, what's the most enjoyable part of it? What bits do you love?
I think what it's always been, Mark, is seeing those the golden nugget moments, I call them, where somebody gets what it's about and has that little success and then picks it up and runs with it, and then you really just keep an eye on them, making sure that they're okay. Seeing the results come in is always a great motivator, because you're on the right path and you know that you're doing the things that you want. Seeing people that I've only known maybe a year be a lot more confident in what they're doing, a lot more assured. We have quite a lot of visitors that come around the factory. I don't do the factory tours. I give it to the people whose areas they are. And at first, when you saw them, they were nervous Nellies and really not, knowing what to do. Now they're confident. They're taking them through the data. They're taking them through specifications, and they've got a great big smile on the face. And for me, when customers come around and say that, they then know that we've got a good business and we've got an engaged workforce who know what they're doing. And little things like that just are the things that get me out of bed on the morning, I suppose, and get me into work.
Yeah, amazing. I love that. I've got some sort of quick fire questions, which are never that quick fire, but we'll have a go. So, what three things or three words would you say make up a good leader?
Communicator. I think I've said that quite a few times, but you've got to know your audience, and so you've got to be able to communicate upwards as well as downwards and manage both exactly the same. For me, a good leader has and shows empathy to everybody and everything in every situation. And then the last thing is courage, having the courage to do things. That includes having the courage to not necessarily satisfy what they require upstairs if it's not the right thing to do, but being able to manage and communicate that. But have also the courage to embrace new ideas and new initiatives, and have the courage to challenge the status quo in the right way, but do the right things for the people in the business. So that communication, empathy, and courage, I would say, is the three main words.
Great answer. Love that. What's more important, do you think, the academic route or on-the-job learning?
On-the-job learning, vocation, because that's really the route that I've gone. But we cannot take away the necessity to underpin that with the academical part of it, because you do learn things from the academical side. But I would prefer somebody who can show me that they've lived the life, walked the walk, and don't talk the talk, rather than somebody who's got a piece of paper to say that they can actually absorb what they've been taught and then pass an exam and do a dissertation. I think both of them are important, but the vocational life journey side is more important to me.
Great, excellent. And we'll touch on it, but manufacturing obviously has got its challenges right now, massive challenges. How do you think, what's the best way we can improve manufacturing over the next sort of 5-10 years, would you say?
Again, it's about learning from each other. If we're looking at manufacturing in the UK, I think there's a lot of challenges moving forward, especially with industries that have the older dirty technology. One of the big positive things for what we're in here in the construction industry is that they are the regulations and legislation is forcing more to go down the planet sustainability to route, and I think that the more embrace that, the more that they'll see that it actually can have a positive effect on the bottom line and the planet. And I think that would help definitely generate new businesses, new initiatives, but also support what each business is looking to do moving forward.
Excellent, love that. And this question is from our last guest. Well, I'll pick a question for you for next guest, but this is actually from Russell Richardson. So Russell was at Caterpillar for 30 years. He was ops director at C-Tech. Fantastic guy. You'll love that podcast. His question was, how would you create a positive culture in a company that's previously had a blame and negative working culture, would you say? So if you move into a business, let's say, and that was the culture, what would be your first steps? The first steps is you and I hate to keep going back to it, but you've got to start to talk to your people, to your teams, and you've got to understand what they've gone through and the damage that old culture could have actually given them. Then it's about getting them involved in that's not how the world is anymore now. This is what we want to do. These are my ethos. This is how I live. This is how I lead. And by doing that, they should start to follow that and say that. And then it's getting them involved in understanding what values are, and making them part of the creation of a culture with the values, and then getting them to understand how they live by them, and then challenge each other when they don't. Fortunately, depending on how damaged that business is, will depend on how many join the journey and how many decide to get off, or how many you take off the bus. But eventually, over time, you will see the positive impact of those sort of traits. But it's communication. Rewarding people for good behaviour and performance is important. Making them feel part of what's going on. Let them know the numbers is something as well, because sometimes
people, don't let them know what the numbers are, whether they're good or bad. You let them know. So if you can't expect somebody to change and improve if they don't know that behaviour or that number isn't acceptable, and it's about then supporting them and mentoring them through that positive journey.
Yeah, love that. Excellent. And just fine in terms of BTS, obviously we've touched on them. What sort of plans moving forward for the next couple of years? Then it sounds like some exciting stuff on the horizon.
Yeah, we've got lots of stuff going on with sustainability. We're about to start on an introduction of an ERP system. So the training starts at the end of this month on that. We've got we're looking at a training centre on site. So bringing customers and apprentices in to understand how the product goes together, and test rigs and the likes. We have further engagement things that we are looking to introduce over the next 3 to 4 months. So one of the big ones is that we're looking to go to the 4-day week for everybody. So last year we went from 40 to 37 hours. With no impact on anybody's pay. This year we're very close now to start the consultation of moving onto a 4-day week for everybody to get the right work-life balance and to make sure that everybody is the best that they can be when we're needed at work. So and then there's a number. I think we've got about 15 things on the agenda for 2023. So there's lots going on, which is really good.
Yeah, and 4-day week for manufacturing, that's trailblazing stuff. You know what I mean? That's brilliant, and hopefully your retention and your attraction rates there will be through the roof. So
we're never going to be the best payers, and we're never going to be the worst. We're going to be in the middle. So we've got to make this business different to retain the good talent that we've got here, but also attract others that we need for the future. And they're one of that. The 4-day week is one of about 6 or 7 things that we've got going on at the moment.
Love that. Excellent. No, fantastic. And it's great to see. I think it's great. And look, this has been a real privilege. So, really appreciate it. I think people learn so much from this, because I think for me, you've mentioned a couple of times, and I learned so much from these podcasts, and it's the communication piece. It's the communication piece, how important that is, and then also giving them a voice and giving them, I guess, the freedom to be autonomous, to learn and to make mistakes. And, and you've mentioned so many good people along your journey. It's had a big inspiration for you in terms of your career, and it just, for me, hammers home how important it is to be a good manager, because you're in such a position of responsibility, and like you say, right from the start, it is an absolute privilege to be in this position, and the importance of it. So I think anyone listening or watching will hammer that home, in terms of, you've got to take this role seriously. If you don't, it's not for you. So thank you so much, Nigel. It's been fantastic, mate. I really appreciate it.
Oh, brilliant, Mark. Thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it.